Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play-to-earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, I have a rental comparison to compare two popular Splinterlands auto renting tools, DragonTools.io and Splex.gg, also known as the Rent Golem. And the first clip I'm going to play is from Splinterlands TV from last night's stream, where we talked about the initial snapshot of data that we were looking at for this rental comparison between these two tools in the ecosystem. But I want to make sure that you stick around for the full video, including the details after the Splinterlands TV clip, because we took a second snapshot a day later at a different time to compare the data. And I think you'll want to see that data as well as our summary of the winners here, or winner between these two rental tools. So definitely stay tuned to the end of the video where you see the second day's data as well as our conclusions. And let's hop into the first Splinterlands TV stream from Twitch from yesterday night. So what I wanted to talk about tonight was a Splinterlands rental comparison, comparing two third-party or partner tools here in the ecosystem, DragonTools.io and Splex.gg, or the Rent Golem. And what I've done is I've actually taken the same set of cards on Splex.gg as well as DragonTools.io, and I've left them out there for a week and left them renting. And what I did is I went and checked the data this afternoon to compare the two and just kind of see how things were looking, to see if there were any interesting data points in comparison that we could look at. So what I want to show you, just if you're not familiar with these two rental tools, they're automated rental services. Their fees, I believe, are about 10% of the rental income per day. This is DragonTools.io. It is in beta. You can see here their dashboard and the cards that are being rented and the data here. It is in beta, so it's not maybe as polished UI as compared to the Rent Golem, which I will show you here, which is Splex.gg. The Splex.gg UI is a little easier to navigate if you're looking for my opinion. You can drill down into the cards, you can activate them, you can see a lot more data here, you can do filters and do searches and sorting. So those are the two tools that we're using. And what I did is I put a number of cards out there on both accounts, same card types, same everything. And here's the data. And we've got a mix of reward cards, Chaos Legion cards, gold cards, regular foil cards. And the columns on the left are DragonTools.io. The columns on the right are Splex.gg. And where there's a green row, that means that service had the better price. Where there's a red row, it had the worst price or the lesser price. And where there's a white row, it means they were tied. So I'm not going to bore you necessarily with the line-by-line data or card-by-card data, but I do have some summaries coming out of all these cards and this data. It's about, I think it was 100 and maybe 130 or 140 cards that are on each account, same cards back to back. And what you can see here is the total rental income from Dragon Tools was 611 DEC for this subset of cards, and it was 550 for Splex.gg, which actually is 11% more rental income coming from DragonTools.io. But what is interesting to note when you look at the data is that of the I guess it's 175 cards here, 100, I'm not sure exactly how many it was. I have to double check, but there was only 3 unrented of this subset. All the cards are rented for dragontools.io, but if you look at splex.gg, 49 of the cards were unrented. So that's a large amount of cards that are sitting idle, and that's really why there's a price difference here in the rental income between Dragon Tools and Splex, because for the most part, Splex had higher prices for the rental cards that it was able to rent, but in a lot of cases, the cards were sitting idle because their price was a little bit too high, and so I wasn't recognizing any of that rental income. I mean, 49 cards is a lot of cards to be sitting idle and not renting. Now, on the complete dragontools.io account, I had 175 cards, and 5 of those were unrented. And on the Splex account, I actually had 363. I had more cards there. But these were cards that I couldn't duplicate over on dragontools.io. And even then, 128 of the 363 cards on Splex were unrented. So that's 35.26% of the cards not being rented out, at least at the time of this snapshot this afternoon. The mode I have it set on for Splex.gg is the balanced mode, so it's not any kind of aggressive pricing or anything. It's the default renting algorithm. So that's not good because you can compare to Dragon Tools. Dragon Tools only had 2.86% unrented. So it was getting more income because it was renting more cards, maybe at not the highest prices, but there's something to be said about efficiency. If you are familiar with American football, there's a saying in the preseason, you can't make the club if you're in the tub. And it means that if you're not on the playing field, if you're not in the game, if you're not participating, well, you're not earning, or you're not going to make the team. So in this particular case, with 35% of the cards essentially on the sidelines, it's not going to have probably the same rental income, even if it's getting better rental rates. Also, from an RC perspective, I had 100% RC on dragontools.io, and I was at 78% on splex.gg. It's probably because there was a lot of repricing going on here as I was trying to rent out those 128 unrented cards. So that's the data. That's my analysis as I did some, just comparison between the two services. I have no skin in the game in either service. Like I said, it's a blind kind of study, same cards on both accounts, just a snapshot from a data perspective. I'm not sponsored. I'm not paid by either of those companies. I'm just sharing data from my personal cards and my personal DEC data that I'm pulling from the two services. So use that info as you may, but I thought I would share it with the community because this data that I was compiling for myself to determine, what is the best rental service. And I'll continue to look at the data. But again, I thought it would be interesting to talk through and share some of that information, and hopefully that's beneficial. So what we wanted to do is, after the stream from last night, I wanted to go in and take another snapshot just to see if there was maybe something I was missing, if maybe there was a problem with the algorithm for splex.gg, or maybe if it was just the time of the day that I took the snapshot that maybe things were not renting on splex.gg. So I went in, I did the comparison all over again. I took another snapshot here in the early morning hours here, the following day or the next day. You can see here we've got the greens where they're the better rentals for Dragon Tools on the left, splex.gg on the right. And what we ended up seeing by taking a snapshot a day later at a different point in time, well, the data was interesting because what we saw is splex.gg on the second day's snapshot actually had more rental income during that particular time. The rental income for Splex.gg taken on the second snapshot was 719.18 DEC being rented out, where DragonTools.io had 668.953 DEC. So in this particular snapshot, Splex.gg actually had 7% higher rental income. And if we look at the unrented sample cards for DragonTools.io, only one out of the total sample set was unrented. So roughly only 0.57% of the sample size was unrented for the Dragon Tools automated rental system. But what we saw here was an improvement for Splex.gg. They still had unrented cards, in this case 26 unrented cards out of the sample size of 173 cards, which was 15% unrented, but it wasn't as much as the other snapshot from the previous day. And because it looked like Splex.gg was getting higher average rental income from the cards that it rented, because it had less unrented in this particular case, it actually had a higher rental income for this particular snapshot. In this case, again, Dragon Tools had 100% RC available. Splex.gg had 81% RC available. So a little bit less RC available or more Hive being consumed on the Splex.gg side. But in this case, it was worthwhile because we had a larger or a higher rental income from Splex.gg. So what is my conclusion after doing this kind of apples to apples comparison between the two rental tools, where we had on the first snapshot, DragonTools.io with an 11% higher rental income, and the second snapshot, the Splex.gg automated tool having 7% higher income. Well, the good news is here is both rental services seem to be doing a good job of renting my cards. Roughly, let's say a plus or minus 10% on any given snapshot between the two of them. What I would say is, a single point in time snapshot is not a good bellwether for performance here. Really, to get data, accurate data between the two services to see which one really is maybe the better service, you would want to do a season comparison for a full season. So let's say 14 or 15 days daily income at the same point in time measured for a whole season to see what over the course of a season does better. I don't have the time to do that kind of data analysis. Already just doing these two snapshots took a ton of time just to get all this data collected, sorted, and compared. But the good news here is both of them do really well. I'm not sure if there's necessarily a difference for me between the two services of using one or the other. I'll continue to honestly look to use both just to have variety in my rental algorithms and rental services. At the end of the day, it's probably not good for the ecosystem to have all of, a majority of rentals on one service. It's good to be able to split the load, kind of decentralize that in the end game. So I think that's probably good for the ecosystem, good for players, and good for everyone in Splinterlands in the rental market overall. Again, this is a subset of cards that I used here, 173. It could make a difference depending on the mix if you use more reward cards or more Cast Legion cards or more wild cards. I don't have a huge card collection to rent out to necessarily test all those different variables. I do hope this data that was collected was informational for you. If anything, just to show that these are both very good rental services that you might want to consider if you have excess cards that you might want to rent out and have an automated service do that rather than you doing it manually. Again, the data will vary based on your cards that you rent, and you might have a preference different than myself. Again, I'm going to continue using both, and I think they're both good services. So I hope this video was informational for you, and until next time, keep stacking those stats.
That's entertainment.